All right. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of our podcast, True Data Ops. I'm your host, Kent Graziano, the Data Warrior. Each week we meet, we will bring you a podcast covering all things data ops with the people that are making data ops what it is today. Our guest today is my good friend, Paul Rankin, a very experienced data architect, data vault, and data mesh expert, public speaker, and head of data management platforms for Roche Diagnostics in Switzerland. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks, Trent. Thanks very much. And the title actually is my title, like diagnostics. It's slightly changed now. So, but
Oh
never
no,
mind.
really? What is it now?
No, so we've, as you know, we've gone through a bit of a transformation with diagnostics and pharma. So now, thanks to that transformation, I'm having to serve the whole of the company now, not just the diagnostics division. Yes, it's exciting at the same time. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, so now you're head of data
Oh,
products
it's
or platforms
more,
for
yeah,
Roche,
because
or
everything's now in Roche as we've moved to a product centric culture in IT as well. So everything's now a product in IT, and I'm obviously looking after the data mesh platform. As a product, a full
wow.
product, and yes, it's good. I mean, it really is exciting times for everyone at Roche because we're kind of reimagining ourselves, not just as an IT function, but also as an analytics and a data function. And we did this quite successfully, as you know, within the diagnostics division over the last 2 years. But now we have to do all this all over again in the whole company, yeah, and in the pharma division as well. So, yeah, very exciting.
Wow. Well, for the folks that don't know you as well as I do, could you give them a little bit of background about your history and how you got to this point at Roche now?
Sure, yeah. So as I just said, I'm with Roche now for a couple of years only. Was brought in to help them with their data mesh implementation within the diagnostics division. Clearly we must have done quite a good job there because now they've really pushed the focus on data products, reusable data products, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that as throughout the podcast. But I came from more of I suppose, a business IT background, probably in the um, 90s, late 90s was my first delve into that when we were using SAS. As you know, SAS started off
Mm-hmm.
as a more of a language, a programming language back in these days. And my first job was with the Royal Bank of Scotland, back in
Oh, yeah.
Scotland. I'm Scottish, and mainframe DB2, with SAS on top of there, and it's funny because I was just telling someone the other day that I remember we would get requests in from the bank, from the retail branches, to give them all their, I don't know, all their customers between, I don't know, 18 and 20 that had, a certain amount of balance on their accounts, etc., etc. And what we would do is we would obviously, you would punch that in using SAS onto the DB2 mainframe. We would print it out in this huge print room, as in paper form.
Mm-hmm.
We would post it. We would post it in an envelope to the branch or the list of customers that met their query criteria. Yeah, and then maybe they would get them, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later. And you can imagine by the time they thought about it, requested it, and the time they actually could do anything with the results, the customers were probably moved on to another bank by then. But it just shows you how far we've come
And that was
from when
probably
I
green
started.
bar paper too, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. With a dot matrix printer.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, they were the times. And anyway, I progressed from there more into the BI space. I started working with IBM, with Cognos at that time was very new in the market, and it was a bit of a game changer for us in the banking industry as well. As you know, Cognos cubes with OLAP technology were
Yes.
were, were like the thing. Yeah,
Yep. I
and
had
it
I
was.
had my couple of years working with that as well.
Yeah, yeah, of course, and it taught me so much. I really recommend the people to go out and study the end-to-end evolution of BI tools, because that has really gave me a fantastic grounding of actually trying to find the data source, program the connection yourself, bring in to what we knew as framework manager at the time, and actually model the data, and then publish it, and then build the dashboard, with the visualization technology. So full, end to end, from inception all the way through to insights and consumption. So I brought this and built on my we splintered from IBM at the time. After we started, we moved to a Scottish consultancy, who then was bought by a bigger a bigger vendor. And then I ended up in Zurich 7 years ago now, basically because Zurich Insurance bought lots of IBM kit like Cognos, TM1, OpenPages, the full analytics stack from
Yeah.
IBM, and they needed someone to lead the migration. So that's why I ended up in Zurich, to help them. It was led by the risk, the global risk team, but they wanted to integrate, finance risk and PNN and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it was exciting. Yeah, it was my first delve into modern data and analytics. But 7 years ago, it was still not as modern as we see today. But they were still looking at, moving to cloud and trying to scale, to an enterprise wide level. But again, the technology was still not quite there. And obviously, moving from there, I went back to Accenture, to consulting, um, and really got exposed to lead the cloud first chapter for Accenture, for ESG, for Austria, Germany, and Switzerland. And there we were helping, a lot of customers make the transition, the digitalization, essentially, yeah, between the on-premise data center world more to the cloud data world. And then ended up in Roche because I was assigned to the Roche account. Obviously, Roche is a very big account for
Yeah.
Accenture, still is as well, and we were strategic partners with Roche, and they were looking for someone really to drive, as you know, the data mesh initiative within diagnostics. And this is where I landed and stayed. And you know Omar very well. He was my boss back then. He was he brought me in, and both him and I, really bought in to the reusable data product concept and data mesh, and really felt that this was a huge game changer for a company like Roche, who were already very decentralized in nature when it came to analytics. And I think this journey has been very exciting for me. It's exactly what I needed at that time, is to change the mindset and kind of really do something a little bit different than just the monolithic data warehouses that we were been doing for years and years and years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Now, and I think if I remember correctly, when you and I first met, you were at Roche, but you were working for Accenture,
mm,
and Omar got us into a meeting to talk about Data Vault. So
yeah,
even
yeah.
before we stepped into Data Mesh, we started looking at Data Vault. Yeah, and
Indeed.
then somewhere along the line, you transitioned. You went from Accenture to, oh, wait a minute, you actually work for Roche Diagnostics now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then that was one of those changes. It's like, oh, okay, that's good. Just liked it so much, decided to stay. I had one of those transitions myself like that back in the early days when I first started doing Data Vault. I was a consultant for Denver Public Schools, and they decided to hire me to run the team as well. And you
Yep.
mentioned TM1, that very first Data Vault that I built, it ultimately fed data into TM1 cubes. We built a TM1 system for doing forecasting for the pay for performance system for the teachers of the Denver Public Schools system. And it was the first one in the world. And it was actually fed from the very first Data Vault that I ever built.
Fantastic.
Yeah, you and I have a scary amount of overlap
Yeah.
in the
We could,
technologies and the
yeah.
things that we have done in our careers. Um,
But
See
TM1,
that
I still love TM1. TM1, I mean,
it was
people,
amazing.
you know, I mean, still use it in Roche, actually. It's still getting used. I can't wait. I need to get my hands on it again and start building some cubes with the team, but they probably won't let me anywhere near it.
Well, and so I wanted to get your perspective on a definition of what is a data product. I mean, we've talked about, actually, I
Mm.
think you and I were doing data products before they called it data products. Like a Cognos cube
Yeah, it
was
could be.
effectively a data product. A TM1
Yeah,
cube
yeah,
application was a self-contained data product that allowed business
yeah,
people to have access to the data and analytics they were looking for, right?
yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, you know, he's saying that it is, and it's really how it's changed now to not just recognizing it as a data product, yeah, but actually putting measurements and governance in place to protect those definitions, and that's where we're at now in Roche. And so let me go back to your first initial question and what I see as a data product and what we're, I suppose, what we see in Roche as a data product. And it has to solve a business problem for sure. Yeah. And I
Yes.
mean, this is key. I mean, and this is a big difference between, you know, a data warehouse and a data product, because you know, a data warehouse doesn't necessarily on its own need to solve specific you know, business problems, but this is the starting point for data products. You need to identify that you have a problem and that you need help, as you know, to solve it. And this help comes in the form of a data product of some sort. Now, in Roche, I mean, I know that Jamak talks about these three types of data products: your consumer orientated, your source orientated, and they have this middle one called this aggregated data product. In Roche, we kind of don't really focus on the middle one, the aggregated. It's more just on the consumer and the source. Yeah, and maybe it's because we're not really at that maturity level that you know, we then start looking at the third type of data product. Maybe that will come, but at Roche, I think we have still, you know, the problem of getting people used to the two ends of the scale, the consumer and the source, and thinking in that way, that we decided to focus on these two for now. And this is, you know, I think actually our friend Sanjeev Mohan actually just published what is a data product and what it's not recently. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet, Ken, but I think he puts it pretty well. And it's, I would say that is probably quite closely aligned. I mean, him and I, just like you and I, have talked about data products, and you know, it is pretty closely aligned that it does have to have this business value. Yes, it must have an owner, someone that is really, you know, owning this and looking after the creation of it all the way through till the time it's decommissioned or retired. Someone that is really responsible for making sure that all the characteristics are met. And you know, this is really key. Yes, there has to be some kind of measurable value to it, and it has to meet all those characteristics that we all know that's in the book. You know, your trustworthiness, your addressability, your findability, you know, your
Right.
security, and all those things. So you know, this is what we see as a data product. It is not just the product, and again, going back to Sanjeev's recent blog, it's not just the cereal, you know, within the cereal box. It's the packaging, it's the content, it's, you know, the all the ingredients, the sell by date, you know, where the data's where the cereal is
This the
coming from.
metadata around the product as
Exactly,
well.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And it's packaged, it really is packaged up as a product. The code is not separate from the data. The pipeline is not separate from the data. You know, the metadata is not separate from the data. It's packaged up in this data product. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
And it
not just
really,
the data.
exactly, yeah, exactly. And this is really key for me, that people, you know, need to understand that they are responsible for all of that, not just the ingestion of the source data, not just the modeling of the data, not just the publishing to a marketplace. They are responsible for owning the entire product. Yeah.
So in a way, this is true stewardship of the
Mm-hmm.
data. And we used to talk about data stewards in the data warehousing world, and that should be a business centric function. And the people who understood the data and were responsible for the quality of the data. I think the data product definition and this approach to data mesh and decentralization has taken it probably to its fullest level, as you're just describing. That it's not just the ingestion. It's like, you're not done with it because you figured out how to get it into the platform. It's you have that whole end to end, as you said, responsibility from
Yeah.
cradle to grave, really, of the data, including the quality, including the governance, including the metadata, the packaging, the cataloging, the discoverability, which is another one of the key
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
pillars there, right? Is the discoverability. Now, interestingly, at the beginning of the conversation, I think you said you are treating your data mesh platform as a product now, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yes, indeed. Not a data product, but a product.
As a
Yes.
product. Okay.
Yeah.
Just happens, but
Yeah.
it's not dissimilar. It's just the
No, it's
um,
not dissimilar in thinking and evolution, and iterations and all of that, agile development cycle that needs to be done, and whether it's a product or a data product. But we're also actually creating now data products as a platform um, for allowing people to get more transparency on metadata and metrics of their data product. Yeah. So what we want to get to is a point where we can provide a data product that allows them to use to understand the value, the overall cost of ownership of their
yeah,
data product in terms of, how much processing does it cost to maintain this data product? What's the team size I need to maintain this data product? What is the usage of this data? Who's using it? Yeah, these things are all going towards this overall value of this data product, and this is really key. This is we're now at the stage of maturity where we need to provide these guys this information so that allows them to make the decisions of decommissioning data products, because clearly data
yeah,
products cannot just be around forever, getting run, maintained, managed if they're creating no value. And what you end up with, these high value data products, yeah, that are really valuable. um, and then you need to measure the cost of them. Does the cost outweigh the value in the end of the day? And high cost data products with low value, you clearly want to decommission. Huh? But that's where it's
yeah.
difficult. It's easier. It sounds that it sounds easier than it is, but
Well, but it's your organization. You guys have, as you said, you've gone through a maturing on this over the last couple of
Mm,
years. And this is something I guess we probably, in the data warehousing world, we certainly never thought about it. We built the data warehouse, we put the data in, and we're always putting more data in as
mm,
there were more problems to
yeah,
solve. But we weren't generally turning things off, because
yeah,
once it's been used, we need it for auditability. One of the principles in Data Vault, having that lifetime
absolutely.
auditability, so you can always go back and see, how did you make that decision 3 years ago and what data did you base it on? But for data products, the idea that we're measuring the value, and I love this, because we're not going to be just spinning our wheels, spending time and resources building and maintaining something that nobody's really using, or it's being used so little that the cost definitely is outweighing the value. And especially with the concerns people have over escalating cloud costs, that comes up all the time around Snowflake and other cloud-based systems, is like, yeah, it's all kind of on demand. And if we're paying as we go, yes, okay, that means that when we run the processing, we have compute costs, and we have to keep track of that, right? So that we're not spending
Mhm, mhm.
more than we're getting out of it. And it sounds like you guys have put that framework in place.
Yeah, not quite yet. I mean, this is what the framework is in place, but we're really trying to make sure that we have this nailed. So we have the data the governance, I suppose, on the data product value and cost. we're still trying to work out how we can bring those costs down for a data product. And in a data mesh and a self-service platform, it's not, I would say it's more smarter ways, because if we do not have the resources to I suppose police every single team and every single data engineer on their data product. Yes, we need to improve our best practices. We need to monitor. We need to automate better. But at the end of the day, we have limited capacity to do these things, especially now that we've gone completely enterprise, and that all data product teams are now essentially using the platform. So we've put the onus a little bit on the vendors here, actually, and especially Snowflake, as you know, they give you a Ferrari, but often they're not so good at teaching you how to drive it. Yeah. So
it doesn't always need to be going at 170 miles an hour. Yes.
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's funny because we have 5 Snowflake resident architects in the team, yeah, from Snowflake, since we've signed the strategic deal there. And um, it's funny, they say, well, you give people a choice, you give them an extra small or a large. And I said, well, if you had a Ferrari or a Citroen C5 sitting out in your front drive, which one would you jump into? Yeah.
But that's also like saying, your Ferrari's got 7 gears, but we're only going to use gear 1 or gear 5,
Yeah,
right? What about the ones in between? Right? You've got other
yeah,
gears in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
So
yeah,
it doesn't have to be.
yeah,
It
yeah,
needs a little more thought than that. Yeah, that
definitely, yeah,
it's not just on or off. There's a lot of gradients in between. If we're really going to, I'll say, get the optimal value
yeah,
out of the
yeah,
platform for the
yeah,
business, right? We want to optimize that usage and that cost, not minimize it, not maximize it, but
yeah,
optimize it, right?
definitely. And this is where we're going now, and we've set up a FinOps team specifically for this, but not only monitoring. I mean, people are great in monitoring. Yeah, they've got all the dashboards going. They've got, the consumption of warehouses, over the last 6 months, broken down to every slice that you want. But actually doing, anything about it when they see anomalies or spikes, that is
The
not so
next
good.
step.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the next step, and they're not so good at doing that.
Well,
And
first you
and
have to
we
be
need,
able to measure it and recognize it,
yeah,
and then you have to
exactly,
figure out how you react to it,
yeah.
right?
And you
So
cannot just pick up the phone and say, "Listen, guys, you're spending too much money." They'll be like, "Okay, yeah, well, thanks, Paul.
leave me
Yeah, see you
alone.
later."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where does what role does data ops play in all of this that we're talking about?
I mean, DataOps is key. It really is for us the central capability. I mean, our data product teams cannot do anything without DataOps. And what I mean by this is, yes, it's the orchestrator of all capabilities. And I mean, our platform, Kent, but just for those who don't know the data mesh platform at Roche, it is all built around the Snowflake ecosystem. So we have a number of key capabilities that are integrated tightly into Snowflake, such as DataOps, such as an access control system, such as a data catalog, such as ETL, data engineering tools, governance, other governance tools, and downstream systems. So it really is for the journey of a data product, we we are very, I suppose, more prescriptive in nature than I've seen other companies do. Um, I've seen other companies say, okay, here's an AWS account, here's the recommended, tools, just build your data product on there however you want, right? Now, this may work for some companies. Clearly, it I don't think it would work for Roche. Yeah, in fact, I know
Well, as
it
big as Roche is, and is yeah, how many data product teams do you have now?
now we have 70, over 70 data product teams.
70, seven
Yeah, seven
zero.
zero.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So that makes a lot of sense to me that you're more prescriptive, because there's got to
yeah,
be some guide rails somewhere with that many people
Yeah.
accessing a self-service platform,
Yeah.
you
Indeed.
don't want it to be the Wild West. You don't want it to end up with being, data silos everywhere. So
Yeah.
having some a framework around it, which I assume you're, again, like you said, the Snowflake ecosystem, DataOps.live helps put some of those guardrails
Yeah.
around it, along with your, I guess, your recommended tools that we use. Instead of letting the teams pick their own tools,
Definitely.
you've
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think
We
you
picked
and
it
I have
for them.
talked about this before. You kind of have the central team that you run, that you guys figure out what's probably, hopefully, the one of the more optimal ways of dealing with these things. What
Yeah.
tools could we use, and then enable these data
Yeah.
product teams, these domain teams, to use these tools within
Yeah.
the governance parameters that you have at Roche, right?
Definitely. And this is what you saw in the past, is you had, um, all the architects in Roche building exactly what they thought was the best solution in terms of a CI/CD capability, or an orchestration capability, or a governance capability, and they would be introducing all new tools, and then building all these integration capabilities for every new use case, for example. Yep, and all Roche. So you would end up with, I don't know, 100 different tools and technologies with doing all the same types of integration, data ops types of capabilities. And we were like, no, this is costing us a fortune. It's spreading our skill set and our chapter resources so
Very
thinly
thin.
on the ground that we cannot afford to do this anymore. Yeah, we build the capabilities in the central data platform team. We build all the integrations all around the DataOps methodology and ecosystem there, using Snowflake and other tools. And we provide all of those integrations and all of those, we call them SDKs, but essentially they're components that are built to do things like publish data products, such as to harvest metadata from Snowflake, publish it into a catalog, to provide orchestration and other tools in the ecosystems like Alteryx, Talend, all these other tools. Yep, DataOps does all that through configuration of an SDK and an OEM.yaml file. So we want the developers, the engineers, and the architects to focus on the solution, the business solution of a data product, rather than thinking about which technology I need to use, what integrations do I need to build, etc., etc. We've taken that all out of the way for them, and it really is now so quick for them to just jump on, find their sources, find data products that have already been published, build their new data product with their data ops pipeline, with their access control, with their publication into data catalogs, data marketplace. We're getting, data product teams are now building and publishing within weeks now. Yep, really is that quick.
Yeah, and for the folks listening, I got to say that Paul and his team have put together an incredible architecture. I remember it's like the first time I saw it, which actually had listed all the products they were using, how they all interacted. You did a presentation at Snowflake Summit last year where you kind of went through all of this in detail. And you've taken the theory of data mesh and put it to actual practical, valuable use. It's in practice there at Roche. Uh, and what I want to ask is there somewhere, and I don't remember myself, where have you published that architecture diagram anywhere other than presentations at conferences? Is it they got to go look up the session from Snowflake Summit last year to see it, or is it out there somewhere else in the
Yeah, it keeps
wild on
changing, Kent.
LinkedIn?
So if
Yeah.
I publish it, it's going to be out of date.
Okay.
I don't know, but yeah, it's been a great journey, and we've had some great support. And it's for me, the technical part is probably the easiest part of data mesh to solve. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have some great vendors, some great technologies and tools, and just in technology itself has moved on so much in the last few years that it's enabled us to get to this position now. Whereas, 5 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to deliver this distributed architecture, and put it in the hands of data product teams, and expect them to be successful. And really, this is, to me, actually now, I wouldn't say easy, but a lot easier than it was. The hardest part,
it's doable now.
it's doable, yeah. The hardest part really is the business side, and clearly that's a different podcast that we need to have.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's like we just ran through our 30 minutes, and I'm only about halfway through the
Okay.
conversation that I know you and I could have. But to your last point, I think we do have to hand it to vendors like DataOps.live and Snowflake for really listening to their customers, because the features that have been added to these products over the last 2 years, from a lot of input from folks like yourself that are doing it, as I say, in the real world, and dealing with real problems of, it just blows my mind that you have now 70. I think the first time we talked about this, you had about 20 data product teams, and now we're up to 70, and it's gone from Roche Diagnostics to Roche
Yeah,
Global,
exactly.
across all these different geopolitical jurisdictions and regulatory environments and everything. And you guys are certainly to be commended for the for
I
what
think,
you've accomplished. You've proven, I think, that it can be done. That this data mesh concept is not pie in the sky. There's a lot of theory behind it, but you guys have figured out how to implement it practically using tools that exist today, not something that hasn't been built yet. Right? You're not waiting for something to be built. You figured out how to do it with the tools that you have available today, and that's an amazing accomplishment.
No, thank you, and thanks to everyone who supported. It's been a journey, and big thanks, shout out to Omar, obviously, as well. I mean, you've spoken to Omar, and it's a lot of a lot of hard work went into that in the first couple of years, but yes, by no way it's finished, and by no way we have succeeded everywhere in Roche. As you know, it's a huge company, and we want to bring everyone along with us on this data mesh journey. Reusable data products, we all know now, are actually a very valuable component of analytics, and we're, I would say we're on the up, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So for our listeners, if you want to kind of track Paul a little bit, you can reach out to him via LinkedIn. Is probably the best place. He posts occasionally. He definitely comments on things on LinkedIn when he has time. Obviously, he's a very
I
busy
have no
guy.
time to post as much as you can. I have a data mesh platform to build.
That's right. Do you have any presentations coming up about the platform anytime in the next couple of months? Are you going to be at Snowflake Summit at least, or
That's still
another
to
Snowflake
be.
event?
That's still to be. The Snowflake Summit is still to be confirmed. I hopefully in the next couple of weeks I will confirm either way, yes or no, on that one. But yeah, we've been, like I say, with this transition in Roche, I've been a little bit focused on really, making that so not so much time as we did last year when we were,
Yeah.
I suppose on a little bit of a road show, myself and Omar, and with
Yes.
you
Yeah. I remember. Yeah.
and the guys. So yeah, but I mean, we have hopefully, certainly by the end of this year, we will have a lot more to tell you, and that's what
Great.
we're focusing on.
Well, look forward to continuing to hear about the progress and the success that you guys are having. Like I said, I think it's a shining example in our industry of what you can do when you put your mind to it and you have the right team. So, well, I guess we have to go now to Paul. Thanks for being my guest today. I think we're going to have you back here again, assuming your schedule allows at some point in the future,
Yeah.
to get you on and talk about some of the other aspects of what you're doing.
Well, that went past so quick, Ken. So let's book another one. I've got lots more to talk about. No?
Yeah. Okay. Sounds great. All
Excellent.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thanks
Thank you,
everyone for
everyone.
joining us today. Be sure to join me back here in 2 weeks, where my guest is going to be my good friend, the inventor of the data vault, Dan Lindstedt. That should be another really interesting conversation as well.
On
So
my
until
satellite.
then, everybody have a great week. This is Kent Graziano, the Data Warrior, signing off for now.